Welcome to the MD Edge Daily News for Thursday, August 9th. I'm Nick Andrews.
And I'm Mary Ellen Schneider. Today, the FDA proposes considering more clinical endpoints in approvals of opioid use disorder treatments.
Also today, ranking the states on healthcare quality and cost.
And later, 1 in 7 babies who are exposed to Zika have at least one health problem related to the virus.
But we begin today with barriers looming for hepatitis C virus care in young people who inject drugs. Researchers interviewed 24 people between 22 and 30 years old and found 5 themes that captured the knowledge of and experience with the virus. Those themes are 1. Deservingness of HCV treatment and stigma. 2. Dissatisfaction with provider interactions. 3. Perceived lack of referral to treatment and care continually. 4. Disincentives around HCV treatment for people who inject drugs. And 5. Perceived need for treatment. The interviewees were largely uninformed about HCV prior to diagnosis and reported learning more about the virus later. They also tended to affirm the belief that they did not deserve treatment. They felt stigmatized by insurance companies and clinicians, thereby reducing their engagement in the care continuum. Interviewees reported no or incomplete referrals or just being given pamphlets and flyers. They reported little follow-ups as to whether they sought additional care and experienced a lack of confidence from medical professionals that they could be counted on to adhere to HCV treatment regimen. One interviewee responded that Hep C is no big deal. It's like a common cold for a junkie. It might take 5 years away from your life, but us junkies aren't going to live that long anyway, so who cares about it? Those comments were made by a 28-year-old woman who was not currently injecting drugs. The study authors said there is an increased need to provide patient-oriented care for young injection drug users and described the potential benefits of some insurance companies reducing their sobriety and disease severity restrictions. Dr. Margie Skier is a researcher at Tufts University in Boston. Dr. Skier says that reducing perceptions of personal responsibility for disease is a crucial next step. Other next steps include improving referral patterns and continuity of care, doing a better job informing patients of their HCV status through patient-oriented testing, and reducing stigma.
The FDA is proposing broader outcomes for opioid use disorder treatment drug approvals. Traditionally, the FDA uses a reduction in drug-taking behavior as the endpoint for approving a medication-assisted treatment to combat opioid use disorder. However, the FDA issued a draft guidance earlier this month that could change that. The guidance is called Opioid Use Disorder, Endpoint for Demonstrating Effectiveness of Drugs for Medication-Assisted Treatment. The guidance proposes numerous clinical endpoints, including a reduction in adverse outcomes of opioid use disorder, for instance, mortality, the need for emergency medical interventions, or hepatitis C seroconversion. Other endpoints include change in the disease status using diagnostic criteria for opioid use disorder, or changes in drug use patterns other than abstinence. The FDA is also asking for comments on other measures that might be useful in helping to understand the efficacy of medication-assisted treatments, like the ability to resume work or school.
Vermont's healthcare system moved into first place on WalletHub's 2018 rankings. WalletHub added 5 new measures to rank the states for a total of 40 different measures of cost, accessibility, and outcome to decide the rankings this year. The 5 new metrics included cost of medical visits and share of high out-of-pocket medical spending. The accessibility dimension consisted of 21 metrics, including average emergency department waiting time and the share of insured children. The outcomes dimension included 14 metrics, including the maternal mortality rate and the share of adults with type 2 diabetes. In the rankings, Hawaii dropped to 5th this year after taking the top spot in 2017. Iowa fell from 2nd to 9th, while Connecticut and South Dakota moved out of the top 10 to make way for Colorado and Maryland. There was less movement at the other end of the rankings, however, with no change all in the bottom 5. Louisiana, Mississippi, Alaska, Arkansas, and North Carolina finished at the bottom of the list this year. You can check out a map with the complete rankings by clicking the link in the description.
And finally today, about 14% of 1-year-olds with prenatal Zika virus exposure show at least one health problem that is likely related to the virus. This is according to research published in the CDC's Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. Many problems are brain and eye abnormalities. Those problems occurred at 30 times the background rate among babies who were not exposed to Zika. The message from the CDC: the Zika story is not over for the children and families affected by it. The study included outcomes for more than 7,000 pregnancies with Zika infection. The investigators also looked at how many babies received the recommended evaluations, which include neuroimaging, hearing screens, ophthalmologic exams, developmental screening, and physical exams. They report that 95% of babies had at least one exam in the first 2 weeks of life, while 76% had at least one developmental screening. Zika birth defects occurred in 14% of babies in the study. Another 9% had at least one neurodevelopmental abnormality that was possibly associated with congenital Zika. 96% of babies did not have microencephaly detected at birth. However, there was some misclassification of the condition. These data come with updated guidance for men who are planning a pregnancy with their partner and may have been exposed to Zika. The CDC now recommends that these men wait at least 3 months after onset of Zika symptoms or any possible Zika exposure. This includes travel or living in an area considered at risk. Past guidance recommended a 6-month waiting period. You can find more details about the new MMWR guidance by clicking on the link in the description. That concludes this edition of the MD Edge Daily News. You can find links to all of these stories in the podcast description. For MD Edge, I'm Mary Ellen Schneider.
And I'm Nick Andrews. We thank you for joining us each and every morning. If you have an idea for a story or a suggestion, please comment or get in touch with us on Twitter. The Daily News is published every weekday morning. Subscribe today and make us a part of your daily routine.